The manhwa begins on a rainy day at a school. A boy is seen resting his head on a table in an empty classroom playing with a beautiful fish conjured by some sort of power. He is distracted and hurriedly looks up from the desk when another boy walks into the classroom. The boy seems surprised to see him there and he tells him that the class is meant for second years and he asks him who he is while the boy just stares back at him stunned. The boy resting his head on the table is called Hwan and the boy who walked into the class is Yul. The scene changes to a luxurious apartment where a fish is swimming in a large aquarium and a boy is sleeping in the bedroom. It has already been 9 years. While Yul is sleeping, he has a dream where he is being touched by some hands, but then he wakes up to Hwan calling his name. He looks behind him to see Hwan sleeping beside him. Hwan asks him if he slept well and then he tells him that he is running late. Yul tries to plead for more time but Hwan manages to get him out of bed and as he brushes his teeth, he notices a red bruise on his neck and he wonders what bit him there. Yul was born as a beta and due to some unavoidable circumstances he now lives with Hwan who is his friend. He goes to have breakfast with Hwan who has already prepared the meal and as he eats he thinks that Hwan is the one who saved him, his only friend. Hwan is the heir to a pharmaceutical company and he runs a cafe as a hobby. He was born as an alpha and into a very wealthy family. After feeding him, Hwan reminds Yul to take his medicine because he's had a weak heart since childhood. Yul smiles saying Hwan is the only one who takes care of him and as he swallows his medicine, Hwan stares at him with piercing eyes. He then waves goodbye to him as he leaves for work but before he leaves, he tells Hwan that he will be always thankful to him and Hwan smiles. The scene changes to Yul at work in a company. He feels feverish and he wonders why he still feels sick even after taking his medicine without fail. He tries to calm down but his fever doesn't go down and soon his colleagues notice that he is unwell. He gets up and tries to go to the bathroom but then he is hit with a wave of anxiety as before when misfortune used to follow him and then he passes out on the floor. He wakes up in the hospital and he is informed by the doctor that he has manifested as an omega. The doctor then tells him to take care during his heat because it would be harder to withstand with normal inhibitors. As Yul leaves the hospital, it rains and he gets soaked. He gets home soaking wet and Hwan meets him at the door asking him why he is so late and why he came in the rain because he is a weak child that could easily catch a cold. Hwan then moves closer to him and touches his forehead to feel his temperature. He tells him that he needs to change his clothes soon while Yul just stares at him, his cheeks reddening. Hwan asks him if he should help him take a shower then Yul snaps back to reality and says no then he leaves. When he gets back to his room, he feels even more unwell because he had been exposed to Hwan's pheromones which are very strong because he is a purebred alpha. The next day, Yul was fired from his job at the company because omegas are not allowed to work and his company accepted only betas. He sits down on the sofa looking lost when Hwan asks him why he hasn't gone to work. He lies telling Hwan that he quit his job at the company. Hwan asks why he quit his job and what happened for him to stop working there. Yul lies again and says that the work doesn't suit him and so he stopped working there and is trying to find a new job. Hwan then offers him a job at his cafe. Yul gets up and walks towards him asking him if it is really okay. Hwan then tells him that he can no longer manage the cafe due to the succession of management going on at his father's company that he was just looking for a manager. Yul then smiles and accepts the position. He starts to tell Hwan that he will work hard when he catches a whiff of Hwan's pheromones and it begins to affect him. Hwan smiles at him and he asks when he can join. Hwan then grabs his hand and pulls him closer telling him that he can start the following day. It seems as though Hwan is about to kiss him when he pulls away quickly and leaves. As he leaves Hwan watches him and stares the hand that held Yul's a few moments ago. The scene changes to Hwan at his cafe explaining to Yul how to make coffee as he teaches him. He touches his hand, stands behind him and holds his hand all the whole releasing his pheromones. Yul wonders why his body is reacting in a certain way and he feels weird. Hwan smiles at him and then touches him asking him if he is sick because he feels feverish. Yul says he's fine but Hwan feels his forehead and says he's lying. Yul begins to feel more bothered and he moves backward knocking over a mug and as it shatters on the floor he says he is truly not feeling well and will be heading home first. When he gets home, the air feels very thick because it is full of Hwan's pheromones. They drive him crazy, and so he goes to his bed and tries to get his mind off it by exercising, and as he does so he wonders if this is the life of omegas. The scene changes to Hwan, who is staring at his computer screen, and on the screen is Yul in his bedroom exercising, and Hwan is staring at him with great interest and his eyes are filled with delicious intent. The next day, Yul is reading up on his symptoms and why he was so out of sorts the previous day. He finds out that as a recessive omega he is more susceptible to alpha's pheromones, and he also reads hate comments about omegas and he feels down. Hwan calls him asking him if he's ready, and he gets up to leave taking his medications with him. As Hwan drives him to work, he tells Yul that he will be going to his hometown today, and he tells him to take care of his food and medicine while he is gone. As he speaks, Yul stares at his hands and wonders how he didn't know they were so beautiful before and how long they were. He then scolds himself for having such thoughts, remembering the hate comments he'd read, but then Hwan notices that he is feeling down and he touches his face, telling him that he will be fine without him, but he also releases his pheromones in great amounts. But Yul manages to resist because he doesn't want Hwan to hate him if he acts on his instincts. After work, he goes home satisfied about the fact that he is home alone, but then the pheromones inside the house get to him, and then he goes to take a bath wondering why the article he'd read said exposure to alpha's pheromones was dangerous for him. After taking his bath, he gets out of the tub but then begins to feel hot and he drops to the floor. He begins to feel like his whole body is burning, and though he tries to resist he cannot, and he begins to exercise when Hwan suddenly appears in front of him and sees him. He looks up at him, about to ask when he'd come, but Hwan stares at him with his hand covering his mouth in surprise. Hwan then kneels in front of him and asks him why he didn't tell him that he was having a hard time. Yul, who can barely talk, manages to let out a huh. Then Hwan tells him that he is having a heat cycle. He then touches his tongue and Yul mumbles out the word inhibitor, but Hwan refuses, saying the inhibitor could affect Yul's heart. Then he offers to help him. Yul says no despite his condition, and that causes Hwan to frown. He gets up and floods Yul with more of his pheromones, causing Yul to snap and lose the tiny control he had over his instincts. He then picks Yul up from the floor and carries him to the room. Yul tries to resist once again, but Hwan kisses him, and as he cannot resist anymore, Yul clings onto him and tells him that he wants them to exercise together, as that is the only thing that will help him feel better. Hwan agrees and they exercise as he tells Yul that he will make him feel better, and as they continue Hwan makes sure to keep Yul under the influence by releasing his alpha pheromones anytime he feels Yul trying to resist. The scene changes to a funeral. Some people are whispering about how sad they are for the kid who lost both his parents to a car accident because of brake failure. The kid is Yul, who is crying his eyes out because both his parents have just passed away. Beside us Hwan, and he comforts Yul, telling him that he will be his family now as his family have passed away. The scene changes to Yul waking up from a dream. He touches his stomach, and when he feels pain he remembers what had happened. Just then he hears Hwan calling him, and as he turns to look, Hwan walks into his room with a bowl of porridge. Hwan tells him that he brought porridge, and he tells him that he hasn't eaten anything for 3 days because of the severity of his condition. Yul looks sad and he refuses, saying he cannot eat. Hwan tries to persuade him, but he just yells that he wants to be alone, and Hwan has no choice but to leave after telling him to eat and take his medicine. After he leaves, Yul feels more devastated and sad. He wonders how Hwan can be so okay with what happened for 3 days when they are friends. The scene changes to Hwan's company, where he is sitting at his desk with an AirPod in his ear and trying to call Yul. He stares at Yul through the CCTV in the cafe, and he sees as Yul ignores his call and he feels pained. The scene changes to Yul at the cafe attending to some customers. One of them notice a faint omega pheromone, and as they wonder who it is, Yul trembles and fears that he is going to be found out, but one of the customers, who is an alphas, laughs and says he'd just been in contact with the omega in an alley. Yul trembles and he is urged by a coworker to serve the customers faster. As he does so he thinks that he doesn't have the confidence to return back home because he is sure that Hwan hates him. Just then Hwan enters the cafe, and after staring at each other, Hwan walks over to Yul and asks why he hasn't been taking his calls. Yul tries to dismiss him, saying he is currently working, but Hwan isn't having all of that and he pulls him to a private place to talk. When they get there, Hwan asks him if he is going to keep ignoring him. Yul says he just needs some time to think. Then Hwan confronts him, asking him why he didn't tell him about his Omega manifestation. He then goes on to say that day he was embarrassed too, but he helped him out as a friend. Yul panics and tries to explain himself, but he feels scared that Hwan will hate him, as Hwan has a strong aversion to Omegas, and because of this he chooses to stay silent. Hwan then decides that they should take some time apart to think, and he walks off. As he leaves, Yul thinks that this is what he was trying to avoid, and a deep fear envelopes him. The scene changes to Yul back at home. He's been trying desperately to reach Hwan, but this time it is Hwan who is ignoring him. He dreams of the day his parents left on a trip, the last day he saw them alive, and he wakes up with tears running down his face and begging them not to go. He picks up his phone and he calls Hwan, wondering what he would do if Hwan leaves him. The scene changes to Hwan, who is watching Yul through the CCTV and ignoring his phone call on purpose, and then smiling deviously to himself. The next day at work, Yul is about to deliver a dessert to a customer when he suddenly feels sick and rushes to the toilet to throw up. He wonders why he's been feeling this way for the past few days, and so he heads over to a pharmacy to get something for his stomach, as he thinks he has digestive issues. The pharmacist asks him if he is an Omega, and when he says yes, the man offers him a pregnancy test kit and asks him to try it out. Yul hesitates since he is a recessive Omega, but then he goes to the bathroom to try it out. His hands tremble as he watches the stick, and when he sees the 2 red lines indicating that he is pregnant, he stands up in shock and tosses the kit away from him. He finds it hard to accept that he is pregnant with Hwan's child after spending one night with him. He seems to be oblivious to the fact that Hwan actually meant to get him pregnant, and he begins to freak out at the possibility of Hwan truly hating him for this. He then decides to run away. As soon as he leaves, Hwan walks in and retrieves the pregnancy test from the floor while speaking to someone on the phone, asking them of Yul's location. He stares at the positive test and he smiles happily to himself. The scene changes to Yul touching his flat belly and standing on the edge of a cliff while the sea rages beneath him, contemplating on ending it all. He wonders what he is going to do and how he is going to live without Hwan. Then some alphas catch wind of his pheromones and they begin to bother him, trying to get him to cooperate with them. He tries to resist, but he's unable to, and just when he thinks his struggle is futile, Hwan appears and chases the men away. Then he envelopes Yul in a big hug and asks him why he ran away. Yul cries, asking Hwan if he hates him. Hwan asks why he would hate him. He then tells Yul that he hates all Omegas but him. Yul tries to push him away, saying he would be unhappy with him, but Hwan doesn't let him and tells him that he'd never been unhappy with him. He then finally confesses to him, telling him that he wants to be with him for the rest of his life as lovers, not as friends. Yul then leaps into his arms and kisses him, thinking that Hwan is his only friend in Alpha, that he really likes him. The scene changes to the 2 of them at a hotel attempting to play a game as they have reconciled. Yul tries to tell Hwan something, but Hwan doesn't want to give him any room lest he changes his mind. He asks Yul if he wants to tell him about the pregnancy, and when Yul asks him how he knows, he tells him that he found the pregnancy test he left behind. He tries to ask how he found his location, but Hwan just distracts him, asking him if it matters now. He then tells him not to think about anything else, and he releases his pheromones. Yul says they should go inside, but Hwan says it's too far, and he asks Yul to give him an answer to his confession. Yul says he's still thinking about it, but one thing he knows for sure is he can't live without him. Hwan says that is not the answer he wanted to hear, but he will accept if for now. He then suggests to Yul that they make another baby. Yul is against that because he doesn't want to feel any pain, but Hwan convinces him and releases more of his pheromones. Hwan then proceeds to lecture Yul till he cannot take it anymore and he cries, but Hwan says it is his punishment for running away without letting him know, and he tells him never to do that again. Hwan then says he is doing this for his own good and he loves him. This delights Yul and he confesses that he's in love with him as well. Hwan then says Yul has no idea how long he's been waiting to hear that, and he hugs him tightly. Later that night, as they try to sleep, Yul asks Hwan when he started liking him, and Hwan tells him that he'd liked him from the first day he saw him. Yul is surprised that it has been for so long, and he asks Hwan why he didn't tell him, and Hwan says he was scared that he would leave him. Yul then says he feels so happy in this moment. He then asks Hwan that he will stay with him, right? Hwan then says he would stay with him forever, and they embrace with Hwan thinking that Yul should stay with him like this forever. The scene changes to Hwan as a child. He was born into a family that produces rare dominant alphas from generation to generation, and he was the one produced for this generation, a blessing to his family. He could always have whatever it was he wanted, and so he did all sorts of dangerous and crazy things since no one could control him. One time he had to be transferred to another school, but because of rumors of who he was, he had to be transferred to the school for betas because no other school would accept him, and that was where he met Yul and fell in love with him immediately. The fact that he wanted to have him was the first thought he had when they first met, and the feeling only grew stronger. He eventually started paying people to bully Yul so he could isolate him, and they did bully him. Hwan offered him friendship, and that is how he became his only friend, and their friendship endured despite Hwan's feelings. He managed to hide them. After Yul's parents died, he offered him accommodation, and since Yul had no one else, he accepted, and that is how he had him to himself. Hwan then devised a plan to continue being the only one in Yul's life, which was to constantly release his pheromones around him and secretly give him medicine to turn him to an omega, and he did this for 9 years till he finally achieved his aim. The scene returns to the present where Hwan is trying to get Yul to sleep inside, but he wants to sleep on the sofa, and he says the baby likes it there as well, so Hwan agrees and goes in to get a blanket for him. He passes by a picture of Yul's deceased parents, and he has a flashback to the accident, and he says that it wasn't particularly an easy decision for him, but he will love Yul more than they did. He then returns to Yul, covers him up and smiles lovingly at him, happy that he has finally had him all to himself. The end.